To me, first of all, obviously, Cozzy and Cooper, I guess, are the big name omissions. Talk us through those ones.
Ultimately, as senior players, we felt we needed more consistent and more or greater performance from them. Cozzy's got 100 in his last 20 games over the last 2 seasons for the Redbacks, and Coops, whilst he did okay last year, this year the numbers dropped out pretty dramatically, and we feel as though we've got some really good young players who are pushing through the list that we wanted to reward, and we wanted to make sure that they were around our coaching group on a full-time basis. Cozzy goes to England during the winter. He'll keep playing his cricket over there if he can come back in the right shape, both physically and cricket-wise. There's no reason why he can't play Shield cricket this year or next season. And Coops is a bit the same. You know, he'll have to work hard during the winter to ensure that he's improving and making sure that he comes back in a way that says that I'm ready to play both forms of the game. But it's really important to understand that it's a bit different from the football system. We can pick players from outside of our list. So whilst they aren't contracted, they are still very much in the thinking if they turn up in September and perform well in Premier League and Premier Cricket. And then we'll select as we see the form players being.
So is it a wake-up call just as much as anything for them? Just an absolute prod that you've got to get right?
They'll take it how they want to. Yeah, look, ultimately we make the decisions on the fact that we've got a certain amount of spots on our contract list, and we wanted to ensure that we kept our growth in our team. We had players that are potentially going to go and play for Australia. And I believe one of the greatest ways, or we believe one of the greatest ways for that to happen is to give them consistent opportunity. And Cozzy and Tom have had their opportunities over the last couple of years and haven't nailed them. A couple of young players came in and took their opportunity. And if they can continue to do that, we're hopeful that some of those players will play for Australia A, for example, in the winter. If they can play well there, we think we'll see them grow even more. And that was a critical part of us, not just having one good year, but hopefully maintaining our form and moving on over the next 2 or 3 years.
So it's an eye on your next generation team as well?
Yeah, I think we've been pretty consistent with that over the last 18 months. We've made some decisions that we thought that we needed to change the thinking. We couldn't continue to do the same things and expect different results. So we've changed some staffing positions, we've changed some playing personnel. We had some nice results this year, some encouraging results. And our challenge now is to have a really big winter, get better, fitter, stronger, and technically better, become better cricketers again, so that we can hit the ground running and compete in both the 1-day and 4-day formats next season.
A review of obviously what's just happened. Of course, you got really close. What else has come out of that in terms of needs for the squad?
We feel as though we've got most things covered pretty well. We'd love to have more spots, and those 2 or 3 guys that have missed this year would probably be on our contract list. Our biggest challenge, I believe, this season will be if we lose players, and hopefully it happens, we lose players to national representation. We have both Zampa and Head going to the West Indies during the winter. So we've been very conscious of trying to contract players that we feel will fill those roles moving forward if they're not around. And we just need continued development. You know, we've had one good year. The challenge for us now to contribute, I suppose, consistently to Australian cricket is to ensure that we're doing year in, year out. Now, that doesn't mean playing in finals every year, but it means that we have players going on to play for Australia and we're competitive in domestic competitions, and that's our target.
So the statistics suggest you win big, you lose big, and final is another example of another big loss.
Big loss?
You've lost.
Got beaten, yeah.
You've lost the experience that you have, but you haven't replaced with any experience. So do you need more experience on your list by getting somebody from interstate or whatever, or you're just going to back the young players to develop and that's it?
We actually feel as though we're going to have 2 full recruits next year. We'll get Ferguson back from a knee injury and we'll get Richardson back from a back injury. So we'll put some pressure on them to ensure that they take up the mantle of senior players and perform at a level that we require. Age is almost irrelevant. We feel as though we've contracted the best group of players that we can to take us forward. Ultimately, the guys that missed because of a lack of consistency in their performance, and the young players or the different players that came in will be given more opportunities because we feel as though with experience and with exposure they can continue to outperform those players, and that's ultimately the bottom line.
Obviously you rate Patrick Page really highly. He's gone straight to a full contract. Tell us about him a little bit.
Yeah, he's probably one of our top 5 draft picks in footy terminology. We've seen again Jake Lehman, Alex Ross, Dan Worrell, Joe Mennie, all these guys continue to improve from being exposed to both the training structure and the game. And we weren't willing to let Patrick dare I say it, sit around in our second 11 competition. We want to get him up with our senior pros and learn how to be a first-class cricketer as quickly as possible. There's so many examples in all sport that the best young players develop and find their way to perform at the levels as long as they're given exposure. And, given every opportunity, we think Patrick can be a really good player. He's dominated under-19, under-17 cricket over the last couple of years. He's played national under-19s well. He's played well at second 11 level at times. It's a matter of, as I say, just keep giving him chances to get better and better.
Is it fair to say he's a Travis Head type of player?
We'd like to think so.
The way he goes about his
Yeah,
cricket.
we'd like to think so. Yeah, he's left-handed. He likes to score. He's a positive kid, and he's probably playing or outperformed everyone else at his age group, which is certainly something that Travis did as a young player.
Alex Keith, how close was he? Obviously, spoke to the Crows just saying he'll start playing footy in their SNFL team next round. Was he close to getting a contract? And by not contracting him, do you think you may lose him to football now?
It's a chance, yeah. But we probably had 2 or 3 players that got opportunity in the team at the end of the year that performed very well, and we just didn't feel as though we could leave them off our list. And we knew that Alex was probably going to have a go at his footy as well. So he went with our blessing. I've spoken with him and suggested if footy doesn't necessarily work out as well as he'd like and he can come back at the start of the year, he'll certainly be fit as long as he's not injured. The door's certainly not closed, and we showed that this year, I think, by giving him opportunity in Futures League cricket, and he even came to Perth when Travis was a bit of a cloud over his ankle in one game. Alex came over as the 13th man for that game. So talented cricketer, talented footballer. He's got a few decisions himself to make, I think.
Is it Alex Gregory, all-rounder?
Yes.
You're expecting him, he seems to have stepped up into grade cricket, that he seems to be able to do well in that. Is he ready for the next level as well?
We hope so. He could play a very important role for us. He's a tall, 6'4" fast bowler who bats in grade cricket at number 3. We like to play, we would probably, when Adam Zampa is back with us, the opportunity to play potentially 2 spinners and 3 quicks means we need someone in the top 6 bowling those medium paces. So Alex is a style of player that would suit playing at the Adelaide Oval and at different places around Australia. We've put a fair bit of time into Alex over the last couple of years, and he's been an Australian under-19 captain. So this is potentially and hopefully a real breakout season for him, and we're looking forward to that.
Given all that you've said about experience and picking the best group, etc., Tim Ludeman was dropped out with 3 games left in the season. How does he get a spot, considering there are so many keeping options and the performance of Carey as a keeper anyway?
Tim was recontracted at the start of last season, just gone for 2 years. He was elevated to the point of vice captain, if you remember, when we changed the leadership group. So he still has 1 year remaining on his contractual period. I think the biggest challenge for Tim now is to come back and play better than he has before, and if the opportunity presents with Carey not playing as well as we'd like or gets injured, he needs to be the next one in line. But as we stand, he had 1 year to go on his contract.
Have you, from what you said, have you drawn a line then, still no more players from interstate? We're happy with the group we've got. You've said you're about developing Australian players, and whether we make finals, we want to develop players, and that's it?
Yeah, we're certainly not closing the doors on interstate players, there's no doubt about that. But at the moment, we feel as though we've got a good blend of young and older players that cover off most of the skill sets we need in a squad. If we feel as though we've got a drastic hole in our squad and there's no natural progression for a player in our system, well then certainly we'd go and look for a player from interstate to fill that breach.
We played next season.
I don't know. We'll see how we perform and how players develop and how they go. At the moment, we've played in 2 finals. We've had individuals who have performed really well, and as a group, we performed really well. So we thought it was important to reward that group with some stability and additional opportunities.
Given your experience with the national team, how do you view the competitive tension between producing players for Australia, the need to do that, and the need to win trophies to sustain the domestic team?
I think they go hand in hand. This year all of a sudden we've played better cricket as a team on the back of more individuals performing well individually, if that makes sense. Because they're performing well individually, our team plays better and we're more competitive and we more than likely win more games. And the offshoot of that is that they get noticed and start to be selected in either Australian teams or Australia A groups. So I don't think you need to divorce the two. I think the really nice result of teams and individuals playing great is that they normally get noticed for higher honours, and that's probably the ultimate reward and respect for your program.
Do you have KPIs around that, or do you expect it to produce a certain number of
We do across Australian cricket. Yeah, we're expected to produce a certain number every year of players coming through our system. It's a tough one because it is reliant on the selectors, the national selectors, reading the KPIs and shipping a couple off for us so that we get the numbers. But I suppose it's a philosophical aim as much as anything. We know that if we keep developing and producing players that are really skilled, that are really fit, that compete hard in the contest and play a role for their team, if they perform well, they're likely to be rewarded with international recognition.
So does that mandate filter down from above, like when it comes
Definitely.
to producing contract lists?
Definitely.
Is the hand of Pat Howard in there somewhere?
Not so much. Our focus, our philosophy here is we know that if we get good young players, for example, playing in national under-19 squads, we'll go well as an under-19 group. We'll be producing international representation there, and they're the most likely, history says they're the most likely players to jump onto contract lists and do well straight away. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of history and a lot of data to show that the best young players come through the system, and if they do, and if you give them opportunity, sustained opportunity early enough and long enough, they're more than likely going to be the ones that will perform for Australia as well.
Can I just ask you about Fergie? You're saying that you're basically dependent on his experience in the middle order next year. I think he got injured, midway through the season. So you're expecting him back from the start, from the one-day series, to be giving that stability?
That's the aim. Yeah, look, he's going really well at the moment. He's up and doing a whole lot of training. His pre-season will be a lot different to everyone else's. He'll hardly get a break, I wouldn't have thought. But he's progressing really well, and our whole aim is for him to be ready to go for the Matador Cup.